Once again by Mike Jones. Hello, Mike.
Hey, Dale. It's that night again.
Right. As we've been doing on Sundays and Wednesdays, we're providing you a chance to watch video that you may have seen before, but now get a chance on a group of videos to say what your opinion is by clicking on the flames on the left. I'm slightly perturbed by this. I'm very, very upset by this, and gradations in between. You already know this because you watch our show. So it's the first chance that you've had to say what you think by sending us your response, and then we will generate an email and send it off to the appropriate officials. There you go. So tonight is our 333rd show in a row on the Mike and Dale show, or the Dale and Mike show, or just the Mike and Mike show. And this, again, is a special report that we're bringing you. In this case, we're going to be talking about how the investigators from the Oregon Government Ethics Commission have determined that the preponderance of evidence provided by citizens and through a resulting Attorney General subpoenas of Josephine County commissioners showed that Cheryl Walker, Simon Hare, and Keith Hick did violate the law during multiple meetings of a quorum of Josephine County Commissioners in 2015. The penalty phase is next. So we're going to start with a June 11 meeting between Wally Hicks and the county commissioners, where he is explaining to them, as we've done a number of times, what the rules are about public meeting law and how they can stay on the right side. Mike?
Okay, so the public meetings laws are constantly being updated in a sense, at least analyzed. The Attorney General publishes out a public records and meetings manual on a routine basis. The most recent hearing in November 2014. And so in an attempt to sort of distill this, at least its essence, to this, and provide the board with a reference document, I've compiled this and submitted it to you for your review, consideration, and discussion.
All right, now, why does this matter? I mean, who really cares, right? But we do bring you every night, 333 nights in a row, videos of people in the Grants Pass City Council, sometimes Cave Junction, Gold Hill, but especially the county commissioners breaking the law or doing things that are fairly despicable. So I have a ruling over my shoulder here, and what it says is, violation of the Oregon Public Meetings Law is a misdemeanor crime. And when people commit a crime, what are they sometimes called, Mike?
Criminals?
Yes. It's a crime in the state of Oregon.
And in more severe cases, felons, convicts, etc. Miscreants.
Right. And it's punishable by up to 30 days in jail and a $1,250 penalty fee. It's a crime.
Mm-hmm.
It is a crime. Now, for years, the people who've been watching and trying to hold the county commissioners accountable have been filing complaints with the state. And we've already told you what their reaction usually is, why don't you elect the right people next time? Which is a fairly good point.
Yeah, which of course they don't really mean, because they are exactly the same kind of people as we have. They don't care about any of this stuff. They really do not.
Now, our conjecture
That's my personal opinion.
Okay. Now, what do you think? We're hearing Mike's personal opinion and mine on the show.
Yeah, amazing.
Right. That's what we do. I think my theory is that the reason they listened this time, because we've been filing things that are worse than this, where they got in trouble, that the reason they're actually doing something now, the Oregon Government Ethics Commission, OGEC, is based on what happened to the governor. The governor was taken down by this kind of thing. And the OGEC suddenly got it in the spotlight. And
like, why didn't you catch this sort of spotlight?
Right. And this time, both I put in a complaint and Sandy Casanelli, and for some reason they put hers above mine. I don't know which one arrived first, but they picked hers first, and they said that mine was largely the same, It was. But we've been double teaming them for a while. And so they responded to Sandy's complaint saying, you know, you've got a really good point there. It does look like they've broken the law. And this is the conclusion they came to. They are lawbreakers. Okay. In some people's minds, there is a fine distinction between a lawbreaker and a criminal, and that a lawbreaker is someone who has broken the law, and a criminal is someone that you have found guilty of breaking the law. Yeah, but we did ask them, and they did use the word guilty. 3 different people called them independently, and they said, yes, guilty is the right word to use. We hoped that when we voted for Wally Hicks, the only elected legal counsel in the entire state, that he would do what he did. Well, you just saw him giving them this. Now, we've given it to him several times in several ways. Given it to them, yes, we have. But we've also given them the documentation saying, don't do these things, and here's what it says. I mean, we can read English. You don't need someone to interpret it for you. You don't need someone to read it out loud in a church in Latin. You can read it for yourself. It's written in a way that is clear to everybody, crystal clear. As a matter of fact, recently the commissioners have insisted that they know what the law is. Keith Eck said, I know we're breaking the law, and I don't care. So it's going to be a little difficult for them to say we didn't know, because they've been claiming that they know all along. And Simon Hare has been, over the years, taunting us by saying, why don't you just file something with the ethics committee? Because he knows they don't do anything. Well, every time he said that, I was just angry enough, and so was Sandy Castanelli, to go ahead and do it. Well, now it finally came home to roost. Those chickens are now sitting on his head because we filed it. And now the OGEC says, yes, you are guilty. And it's headed toward the idea that these couple of them will be running for office, and they'll be criminals.
Yeah, and you know, I hate to be, you know, suspicious of the OGEC. I don't think there's anything there really. I think here's the benefit of this. Ultimately, this ruling will aid in their ultimate political defeat.
Yes.
And that is the objective, really.
That's all.
The idea that somehow these guys are going to get thrown in jail or get fined in some sort of embarrassing way, that's just not going to happen.
Right. And the thing is, as we've said, as I've said, as we've said many times in this show, you can't look to the state to solve any problems for you. And they cause more problems than they solve in the long run. And it's up to us. It's up to us for public safety in many ways. As those of you out in the county know very well, it's up to us to solve our own problems. One is we have to stop electing these kinds of people. We really do need to stop that, guys. And the other thing is, it's going to be up to us. The court of public opinion, you saw what happened when we went to the court and the judge had prejudged the case and said, there's no such thing as permanent in this life. There's no such thing as permanent. I mean, there's everyday, no, and even everyday English isn't going to save you because permanent means it's going to last forever and ever. Nothing lasts forever and ever. Yeah,
and you know what? He was not being serious at that particular juncture. I mean, he knows darn well that the word permanent shows up in law and stuff having to do with fees and taxes all the time. You know, this guy was just, he had prejudged the outcome. He wanted, and everybody in local government wanted a particular outcome, and he's on board with them, and that's what you got in that situation. There was no erudite thinking happening there. It's just was not at all.
Well, the thing that we all have to agree upon is we're going to stop this wishful thinking kind of stuff. We need to stop living in a fantasy world. I mean, it doesn't mean that we have no influence, because we do, and we've been showing you examples. We just showed you one last night about how people had an effect on how things turned out all right. But I wished and wished and wished and hoped and hoped. This is not a good idea if you're interested in science, because numbers,
hoping, yes.
Yeah, numbers will show you. It's like people saying, well, we lost by 80%, but we still did a great job. No, you didn't, and it's mathematically proven. Well, I felt that way about Wally Hicks. This next little video, I titled it, Wally Hicks Says It's All Right to Violate the Open Public Meeting Law. Really? This happened on November 5th. And although I could have just kept rolling the videotape and let the chips fall where they may, I do care about my county government. I would rather that they not break the law. Here's a video from November 5th, which documents that Wally Hicks has changed sides.
Madam Chair, several of us noticed that today's meeting was not posted on the county website. Therefore, if you proceed with this meeting, you'll be violating Oregon public meeting law.
Excuse me.
Look how concerned Cheryl looks.
Yes. She was devastated by that.
It's against the law to just post it in the hallway. It's specific in the law.
It is.
Okay. Wally Hicks just said you were all right.
Wally waves it away while looking at the sheriff. Sheriff looks over at him. Okay.
Yeah.
That's that. So Wally Hicks says, you're all right. And Cheryl repeats, we're all right, yes. Wally Hicks is sitting right there in the audience. He knows what the law is. Let's take a look at what some of the law says. Mike? Is a meeting without proper notice an illegal meeting? Answer: a meeting without proper notice violates the public meetings law. That's from the Attorney General's Public Records and Meetings Manual. And if you want to go look it up, it's Appendix J, frequently asked questions. A meeting without proper notice is illegal. Illegal meetings, any kind of conclusions that you come to in an illegal meeting are void. And if you're going to be taking on illegal meetings, you are committing a crime. Now, Mike and I talked about this before the show. We didn't used to ever talk about things before the show, but we do now.
Yeah.
And I mean, the guy Al Capone, and they're not Al Capone. I mean, this doesn't rise to that level. Let's be serious. But they got Al Capone, who was a murderer. They got him on evading income taxes. Why? Because that was the only thing where they could get it to work, because they had judges similar to the judges we have here. They weren't going to get anything done. They got him on income tax evasion. It's a federal offense. And these guys who have done a lot of really bad things, the only place, this is a mystery to me, where the Oregon Government Ethics Commission has any teeth is in executive sessions, okay, in meetings. And if they violate the meetings law, then they are criminals. Boy, it's taken me a long time. I'm still not really comfortable with that word, but they have committed a crime, and people who commit a crime are criminals. I still don't feel comfortable with that.
Yeah, and it speaks to transparency and will. Clearly, it wouldn't be too hard. Like if we were setting up to go on the air and Dale skipped a couple of steps or something, you wouldn't be seeing us right now, because you have to do all the steps. And why is it that they don't have a checklist? And listen, when a pilot's landing an aircraft, he goes through a checklist. This is hardly landing an aircraft, but for crying out loud, how hard is it to just make sure that you're doing the same thing and doing the correct thing? I mean, this is what they do for a living, for crying out loud. If these people were baking donuts, you wouldn't eat their donuts.
No.
Because they forgot to put the sugar in, for crying out loud, and that's the best part.
That's right. That's right. Exactly right. Now, in this next little clip, Wally Hicks is involved again. I'm telling you, it's over. Okay? That love affair is over. And the reason that they've gotten in trouble in other counties, the reason these commissioners got in trouble is because they went into an executive session, a number of them, a series of executive sessions for months and months. And what they were doing is they were putting something on the agenda called matters from commissioners. That's it. Well, it's so simple. You're supposed to let people know what you're talking about. And so if you're going to have a meeting, you must tell people what you're talking about. Here's a question for you. Maybe you don't care, but there are a lot of people who do. Does anybody in our audience care about what's going on with these fire ordinances, the fire standards, with those fire
they do.
guys out in Maryland, right? And so if they had a discussion about that, you might want to know, one, that they're having a discussion about that, and two, you might want Ed or Campuzano over at the Courier to show up. He doesn't always come, but he would be alerted that that was going to happen. We're going to be there anyway, so we're going to catch it, but you might be in the audience, or maybe even someone from the Maryland Fire guys might show up.
Right.
Listen to what happens at the beginning of this meeting. This is from November 24th, so it's just a couple of days ago. Let's see if Keith Heck has learned a lesson. Go ahead.
I guess this was part of the last slide there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, okay, but we'll come back to that in just a moment.
Okay.
That was why I wanted to change the order of these. Okay, go ahead. This,
oh
no,
I
this is
see.
the insert. This is the insert. Insert.
These folks or Mr. Heck?
Okay.
No, this is the insert that goes here. That's why.
Oh, all
insert
righty
goes
now.
here, yes.
Just
Okay.
hang on.
Because this
Okay,
is
let me
new. This
let
is
me
brand
roll
new.
this back.
Okay, he's going to get it back. This
And
is
then switch to the insert. Okay, here
this is the latest.
we are
insert.
ready.
Okay, let's see if Keith Heck has learned a lesson.
It is 11 a.m. and it's time for the November 24th general discussion of the Board of County Commissioners to commence. In attendance, myself, our hair. Can we have, according to the agenda, the fire standards draft ordinance? Do we want to jump over that one and take number 2 first? Well, it's on the agenda.
Simon's like, what? Double take.
But I'm glad you brought that up because I would like to move that. That is not on this agenda.
It is on the agenda that was in the board packet.
Oh.
Wasn't posted.
We can solve that matter ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I have no problem. I have no
I
problem.
didn't even look. It's just,
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Keith has no problem with going ahead. Okay, let's review what we just saw there. Okay, so Keith Heck has his own agenda, and he wants to talk about fire ordinances. You must post your agenda ahead of time so that people know what you're talking about, or so that the Maryland Fire guys can show up at the meeting. I want you to note that Wally was seated right there at the table. Wally Hicks was seated right there at the table, and they've just recently gotten in trouble for having meetings and not telling people what they were going to be talking about. And I said from the audience, I'm not supposed to talk. I said it wasn't posted. And Keith said, we can solve that matter ourselves. I have no problem with, and then his voice trails off. Well, they were going to talk about something which was not posted. And while you may not care, the guys out at Maryland will care. It's their business. Wally Hicks should care. It's their bottoms that are getting toasted here. He's supposed to keep us safe and supposed to keep them out of trouble. And he's not doing it because he drank the Kool-Aid. He's going along with them. Did he say a word? No. Not now, not during the rest of the meeting. It was only Simon that said, well, Simon was busy. He wanted to go off to another meeting. And Keith was going to introduce a subject into a meeting. It's against the law. They swore to uphold the law. Now, if you're not happy with what they're doing, you can indicate that here. But if you're not happy with what they're doing, this is like what happened with Capone. I mean, okay, it is the only part of the law that seems to have any teeth at all. They can lie, cheat, steal, do whatever they want to. But this is the only part where the state will do anything about it. you're violating the public meetings law. And they were doing it during executive sessions, which is a real big no-no, because everybody has to trust the commissioners to do the right thing because nobody's watching them. Nobody. Not Wally either. Sorry to say, he sat in on every one of them with them. Now, we do have a little graphic which will tell you what the law says about that, and that is white type on black lettering, on black background, and that is, nope, that's too far. It's the one before this. Okay. All right, we can talk about this one. Is it true? Okay.
Well, notice. Okay, here's
right. Notice must specify the principal subjects to be covered. This is right out of the Oregon Revised Statutes. Far enough in advance, reasonably, to give interested persons an opportunity to attend. It's the Attorney General's Public Records and Meetings Manual. Frequently asked questions. Is it enough? No, it's not enough. And what does the next one say? Remember, they were talking about, well, it's posted on the wall. I talked with Wally about this before he ran for office. I talked about him with it after he made it through the May primary. I talked with him about it his very first day of office. So, is a notice posted solely on a bulletin board sufficient? It is not, period. I remembered that one specifically, and I laughed about it because it's the most clear thing I've ever seen in any kind of law. Well, okay, that's gone now. Stop. Okay, so the point is that that it's not good enough, and he laughed about it with me. We've talked about this, Wally and I, just the two of us, twice. We've told the commissioners it's not enough to pull it on a bulletin board because people in the hallway and the courthouse will know what you're talking about, but nobody else will, and we're the bosses. It's not good enough to do it that way. So when Wally says we're okay, that's false. He knows that it's false. He's at a public meeting. He has just made testimony and a ruling of his own. It's false testimony, and it's a bad ruling, and he knows that it's wrong. So what do we do about that? We learn a lesson about Wally Hicks. I mean, I don't feel good about that, but I mean, he knows. We've talked specifically about this. It's not good enough. It is against the law. It's a crime. It's a misdemeanor, but it's a crime, and it's punishable by up to a year in jail. Mike?
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right. On to the next little graphic. Here we go.
There we go.
Right. Okay. We put this out. Yeah, this is it. We put this out, and there's nobody else that's going to put out the whole 100-page deal. I mean, there's nobody, right? We put it all out. That's what we do. Nobody does that. Okay. And so this is Bad County Details. Put it out there, the details of the commissioner's illegal activities. Okay. So Mike, I asked him to just take a look in there and pick out a sentence or two that he thought was especially important to him. Mm-hmm. And what do you have to say about that, Mike?
Well, I think it's kind of silly, but I mean, it says there is sufficient evidence to indicate that Keith Heck participated in 4 executive sessions held in January and February of 2015 by the Board of County Commissioners for Josephine County, and that each of these executive sessions, a topic was discussed which was not authorized under ORS 192.660.
They were breaking the law.
That basically sums it up. Now,
we've caught them breaking the law a number of times, but this is the law that has teeth. That's it. That's all. And maybe you want to get them for something else, but nobody's going to get them. We're the only ones who can get them. Or the citizens. If you want the state involved, you have to pick the one thing the state's interested in, and that's this. Okay. So now what we have for you is we have audio recording. Sorry, they don't, this is the best that we can do. And it's not our audio, it's audio from the Government Ethics Commission. And here's what they had to say about the commissioners. They're asking, at the hearing, they said the respondents, that's the commissioners, and their lawyer are not going to appear. Okay.
Present, either Ms. Walker, Mr. Hare, or Mr. Heck.
No, none of them are present, and
Very good.
they're all represented by the same attorney, Tracy McGovern from Frohnmeyer Deathridge, and she contacted me and said that neither she nor the respondents are going to appear today.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead and proceed.
Well, now later on, Cheryl said, well, no one has talked to me. Yes, Cheryl. The reason why is because you told them through your lawyer that you were not going to attend.
Yeah, clearly.
Well, mystery solved. Well, no one's talked to me. Yeah, you, the three of you got together and hired a lawyer to say you haven't done anything wrong. Well, and what's going to happen, come on, let's be logical. What's going to happen, what the commission wants to do is, first, they don't want to find anybody guilty. That's just not what they do. You know, there was another case just that same day with involving Gold Hill. Had nothing to do with that, but they didn't find any of those people guilty. You can say basically they never do. Okay, it's so rare. That's what's rare about this, and it had to be really egregious. Strange word, that word. Really egregious for them to do it at all. But what they're going to do is they're going to give them a letter of education, although they've said we already know that we're breaking the law. So how are they going to ask for? None of that will make any sense. That doesn't matter. They're not going to fine them $1,000. They're not going to go to jail. There's none of that stuff's going to happen. Their jail is going to be with us because we're going to toss them out because they're criminals. They've broken the law. It's a crime. It's a crime, and they've broken the law. Okay, so we have another little clip from that same meeting where the lead investigator finds that there is a cause to investigate because they were given material by me and by Sandy Casanelli. And keep in mind that executive sessions is the only thing that the Ethics Commission, even though they've got a strange name, will ever consider. Go ahead.
Cheryl Walker, Simon Hare, and Keith Heck were Josephine County Commissioners during the period relevant to this investigation. A preliminary review was conducted after a complaint was received alleging that the county commissioners may have violated the executive session provisions of the public meetings law. The commission found cause to investigate on May 1st of this year after considering information developed in the preliminary review. The focus of the investigation was to determine if there was sufficient evidence to indicate the commissioners participated in 5 executive sessions held in January and February of this year when topics not statutorily authorized for executive session were discussed. I've submitted the investigative reports to the commissioners with a recommendation to make preliminary findings of 3 violations of ORS 192660 sub 2 for Commissioner Cheryl Walker and 4 violations of that same statute for Commissioners Hare and Heck.
So the investigators found multiple violations, Mike?
Yep.
Okay. Next little clip.
Questions? Motions?
Oh, I'm sorry,
good.
I forgot. I passed out a letter that came from the attorney, Ms. McGovern.
I think she was responding to
She was responding to the
report.
investigative report.
Right.
Does her answer change your recommendation?
No, she wanted the commissioners to know the last paragraph of her letter, or close to the last paragraph, that which was contained in her letter in your meeting book, that the commissioners of Josephine County have since discontinued using the topic matters from commissioners on their executive session agenda as kind of a catch-all generic topic. So they
There's also a reference to the cable franchise.
Yes. Yes.
And does that change does her explanation of that particular point change your
No, that was the, yeah. I spoke with Lynn Rossick about this statute too that she's referencing. And my understanding is that when a governing body goes into executive session under the lawful basis to consider a record exempt from public inspection, that they have to have the record there that they are going to examine or consider. And it sounds, she says that the record wasn't there. So.
Now,
boy, I can tell you the quality of their audio is way better than the county's.
You were probably saying, well, there's a lot more important things than this, and you're quite right. But this is the only one where the state's going to get involved. It's the only one where the state's going to get involved. So you're just going to have to be satisfied with that. They were using the topic matters from commissioners as a catch-all phrase. You just heard him say so. And you heard him chuckling about it, okay? Now, we told the BCC that they should not be doing this. We told them right from the beginning. We told Wally several times they may not be doing this. Notice must specify the principal subjects to be covered. Saying it's a catch-all kind of generic topic and then laughing about it from the OGEC is not good. They started doing this September 25, 2013. And they say the last time they did it was February 18th.
Well, then why are they not retroactively giving them violations for all of those cases?
Because we put in violations, but they weren't paying any attention to us.
Right. So I repeat the question. Why wouldn't they, for crying out loud,
Right.
If they can see that there's a track record of doing this going all the way back to then, why wouldn't you, if the cop knew that he could ticket you, I guess what, you only give the guy a ticket for the time when you pulled him over, I guess.
Yes.
And, that has to include somebody's complaint and whatever. Did you file complaints about the previous ones?
Yes.
Going back to 2013? Well, for crying out loud.
Well, and
what's the holdup?
Keep in mind that they're fined for every violation, not just one time for 4. For every violation. So Sandy Casanelli warned them in January 7th, right? She got up at the weekly business session. She said something similar to this. Today at 2:00, the board held an executive session. And the last item number 5 on the agenda simply said matters from commissioners with no specifics. Yes, there are more important things. I already heard you, even though I can't really hear you. I know this. Okay, but this is the only thing the state will do anything about, and it doesn't matter whether you've got videotape or not. So it's a violation of Oregon open public meeting law. It's also a violation of their oath of office. And go ahead.
And also, of course, for the purposes of transparency, you should at least have a topic about what's going on, what they're discussing. And, they could be discussing, bribery and all kinds of stuff in there if you didn't at least have some sort of topic to tell you what's being discussed there.
And we know for sure that they have been talking about embarrassing items as well, things that they don't want us to hear about. But see, executive session is not a time when the board is supposed to be talking behind the public's back about any item under the sun and calling it matters from commissioners. They were told in no uncertain terms when Sandy went to that meeting that they had been breaking the law. I had talked to Wally about it many times. As I told you, we've laughed about it, about how they're not supposed to do that. And then he sits right in on those same meetings with them when they're breaking the law. It's not okay. It's a violation of their oath. There's a lot of things a violation of their oath. I'll repeat that a couple more times during this show. This is the only one where the state's going to do anything about it. So we'll just have to settle for this until the election gets here. They are headed down a road to being found guilty of a misdemeanor crime. Okay, so I think I've said that word enough times. It really gets bad. It really gets bad when you find an ethics board says that your meetings are a guise for something else. Let's hear what they say, and they'll laugh about it.
Well, yeah, no, I think that kind of covers it. It's kind of like when people go into executive session to discuss, to confer with counsel about litigation, but they don't have any counsel. You know, we don't consider that to be fully compliant with what the requirements are of the provision. And,
would it matter if they had the documented another meeting and simply remembered content?
Well, that's one of the interesting things about this case is that they have this sort of tendency to hold executive sessions and use as the purpose of the executive session sort of long ago pieces of advice, as though that kind of was the base, and then they could sort of build on that discussion. And I think it's similar to using the agenda item of matters from commissioners, that there was kind of a loose connection with the requirements of the executive session provisions for how they conducted executive sessions.
That's a nice way to put it.
Every single week. And they would continue to use, for example, a very old piece of legal advice as the guise for continuing to talk about something over and over again. And I think when Diane and I discussed it, we did not feel that met the requirements of the executive session provisions.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there you go. Okay, so this time they're caught red-handed, and there's a policeman there. So those of you who have been saying, well, yeah, we caught him many times. This time there was a policeman there. Now you have the opportunity to say what you think here about any of these things by voting, and we'll send an email to them on your behalf. Not on your behalf specifically, because there will be retaliation if you do that. I know that, because I've suffered from the retaliation of pointing this story out and holding up the 100-page report at a meeting. We'll see that in a minute. And there was retaliation. You won't suffer from any of that, but you can say what you think. This is, I'm totally outraged. This is, I'm partially outraged. This is, I'm somewhat outraged. This is, I'm moderately outraged, or something like that. And then you could vote. I mean, we're asking you your opinion, and you can tell us what it is. So one more thing then. Well, you know, really maybe that board didn't know much of anything, and maybe there was a split decision or something. No, they voted unanimously. They never find anybody guilty of anything. The board voted unanimously. Let's listen to them voting unanimously, Mike.
Motion to approve staff recommendations in matters 14, 15, and 16.
Thank you, Commissioner Golden. Virginia.
Commissioner Coburn. Aye. Commissioner Golden.
Aye.
Commissioner Hooper.
Aye.
Commissioner Tomlin.
Aye.
Chairman Montoya.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Well, there you have it. Now, that decision was made on October 23rd. October 28th was the very first weekly business session at which anyone could make any comment about this. That was the 23rd. I spoke on the 28th. Here's what I had to say to the commissioners. Now, keep in mind what I'm saying at the end, and you listen. Am I yelling out expletives? Am I calling Keithek names as he's called us this? Am I running around the room screaming? You check to see if I've been...
Yes, and yes.
Yes. All right. You just listen to see if I deserve the retaliation for anything more than two things. One is turning them in. Two, running against Keithek for office. Let's see.
Dale Matthews grants pass. I have in my hand a 100-page document from the state of Oregon, the Oregon Government Ethics Commission. It's signed by the Assistant Attorney General of the state of Oregon. All three commissioners have been found guilty as of Friday of violating the Open Public Meetings Law. This was a long time coming from the state because they don't like to find anybody guilty of anything.
Pick the microphone up a little bit.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. They just don't like to do that, but the evidence was piling up so fast that they just couldn't ignore it anymore. Now in this, Keithek says, well, paraphrasing, I'm really not quite sure that I understand what the laws are, except of course that we've told him, and he said in this room 3 times, I know we're breaking the law, and I don't care. That statement by me to the OGEC made a big difference in their finding that this idea that the three of you don't know what the law is. You admitted you do know what the law is, but you don't care. So what are the results of this? Well, after talking with the state, they told me a couple of times, they said, look, we're going to expend the time and effort to look into this and find them guilty with subpoenas of your records, with testimony offered by you through your lawyers, not through Wally Hicks, through your lawyers. After all that effort, subpoenas and the rest of it, what are we going to do about it? Because they can follow through, and they did, finally. But what they said to me is, if you keep electing these kinds of people, we can't do anything for you. Well, I agree. If I was the state and the regulators, I would say, we're not going to do anything more for you if you just keep putting yourself back in the same hot water, you citizens of Josephine County. Why would they do anything ever again? So you're going to say, well, this is nothing. This is just a mountain out of a molehill. It's still under investigation. No, it's not. It's over. You're guilty. They found you so. So certainly some say, well, really, what does guilt mean in this world of ours? We all know. You've been found guilty. Now they're going to charge you $1.95 and give you a slap on the wrist and maybe a copy of the rules because you don't know what they are. Yes, you do. So the end result is we're going to have to move forward without you. We're going to have to consider you as part of the past. We're just going to come up with solutions of our own. And this is me turning my back on the past.
Aha. Well, you know what? Listen, I got to take a little bit of issue with what they said to you. If they said to you that, you know, if you guys keep electing these kind of people down there, we're not going to be able to help you. That's your job.
Yeah, it is their job. That's true. Yes.
Shouldn't matter. Shouldn't matter who we if we put the same group of idiots in there every time, they should still be subject to oversight from the Oregon Ethics Commission. There.
So I'm going to use a phrase that I'm not entirely comfortable with because it sounds so highfalutin. It's called a writ of mandamus, and if you've got enough money, you can bring up these state officials. By the way, here's how you can vote about this subject as well. And you can take them to court. That's the only thing that will work. The law is very clear. It's all the justice that money will buy. Here's your vote again. And you can take these public officials of the state of Oregon to court under a writ of mandamus and say, you're not doing your job. We sent you the videotape and you still didn't do anything about it.
Yes, and sadly, they'll probably give you the same responses after you pay with your own money to file that lawsuit.
So that's why it is up to us. It's up to us. You didn't expect that the commissioners would say, yeah, I guess you're right. You know, I suppose we're guilty. No, of course they're going to say we've done nothing wrong. It's Mr. Matthews. It's your fault, Mr. Matthews. It's all Dale Matthews. It's not us. They said that badcounty.com is the reason that people aren't moving here. Really? That's just crazy. Okay. So, of course they're going to say that. It really is up to you. And I'm sorry, I try not to be too pokey to you. To our audience.
Pokey.
If you don't even care enough to click on a button, what hope do we have? Really? I mean, come on now.
Yeah, there really has to be I've been thinking about this a lot lately. How do you do this? How do you mobilize a previously gelatinous blob that's sitting on a couch somewhere?
Hey, you're talking about our audience.
No, listen, our audience is engaged. It's the people that don't watch this show and don't care anything about local politics at all. These are the people that you have to find out what is it that matters to that guy and motivate him and say, hey, listen, if you want, I had this discussion with my son. He recently surprised me. He lives in Hawaii now, and all of a sudden he just walked in the door. We about freaked out because no one ever walks in our door. Right. But anyway, I was having this conversation with him, because he's not all that political. And I said, well, if you're not if you're not speaking out on the topics that you find important, and just take, for instance, the taxes that they're taking out of your check, that they're taking that money from you and spending it on something, you have a say in that. And if you don't like that, it's your duty to say something about what they're doing. Or I believe it's your duty as a citizen to be aware of what policies are in place, and then think about what those policies are ultimately going to precipitate down the road. What's going to happen as a result of certain policies. So how do you find that thing right here in Josephine County, that if you don't pay attention to this stuff here, then this is going to come visit you? Now, enough people pay attention, when it's comes time when it's going to hit their pocketbook. They pay attention to, okay, here's the levy. They're coming at me again for more money. And they are sufficiently mobilized to vote at that time. Now we have to take that a step further and get them to be engaged when it comes to the personalities involved, because this makes a big difference. That, people have certain inclinations and worldviews that they're naturally going to take into the job of being your commissioner. And if you're not paying attention to that, you may just get a lemon or 3. So, yeah. Right. This is one of those things. We need some really heady intellectuals, and we need to sit around a big room and throw this stuff, all this spaghetti at the wall here. You have to come up with something. Because there are things you can do. Now, you can wait a year, and then or 6 months actually, until the primary, and then you can vote. Okay. So I've taken a step forward. It's a challenge, but I've said, okay, I will help be part of the solution. Mike is helping part of the solution. Some of you are clicking on this right now. Others have said, well, we like this show on Facebook. And a couple of you, I know this must be the case, have talked with your neighbors. Hey, have you ever seen that show? It's not something that comes up on an everyday basis. Here's something else that you can do. And it's not going to take you any time or effort, really. The next time you see any young person in your area, some young people, come on now. And I don't mean necessarily 8 years old, right? But just a young person, 16, 17, 18, older, 20s. Tell them about this show. I have found that when I have worked a lot with young people, and I found that one of the things that outrages them the most is adults that are not true to their word, and adults that break the law, and adults that do crazy things. They find it hilarious and maddening, as you do. So tell a couple of young people about this. Some young people, I know you do. Sorry to yell at you. And tell them about this show, because it turns out that most of our audience is gray. Nothing wrong with that, but it would be nice to have, blue and pink and purple and green. That would be okay too. Let's tell some more people about this. Well, I kind of like that, as a matter of fact, but that's me. Yeah, tell them a little bit about, not just the green, blue, the purple, and the red, but you be that way as well. We can. I know it's been a long time since anyone said to you, you're the boss of the county. You are. This is what Mark Goins was talking about and never understood what he was saying. Really, you should be paying attention to the authority, but you're the authority. That's what it meant. Mm-hmm. That's why the founding fathers were not Satan worshipers. Let's not say that about them. That's just not true. That's why they were on the right path. We can all be on the right path, but we've got to get rid of the rotten vegetables in the refrigerator. Not just a couple of them, all of them. So you don't want to have radicals and they're going to, be crazy or something. But it's radical in Josephine County to
say that people should be in charge. That's radical. It's radical to say we're going to obey the law. That is, as sad as that is, that's radical. It's a radical point of view.
Well, you know what? And we've said this before, that you could almost do better by going down the street and just kidnapping somebody off the sidewalk.
Or a piece of cardboard. At least a piece of cardboard's not going to lie to you.
Right. Yeah, but you'd have a hard time getting a vote out of it.
Yeah, okay.
That would be the issue.
That. At least one, it's not lying to you, it's not breaking the law, and it's doing less. Hey, that's positive.
That's a good point. You know, and
new ordinance.
Yes, right.
Okay,
Yeah.
now you knew the county commissioners were going to have a reaction. Well, of course. You think I don't know that after all this time? I knew there'd be retaliation, which is why I understand this. Why you don't go to the weekly business sessions, because there's going to be retaliation. If you told them what you thought, you need to go when it's safer to go, when there's a new gang in there. And I hope to be part of that new gang. We'll see. There are other people who would be really, really good at this. If there's new people in there, then maybe you can feel a little safer to go. But the commissioners are going to respond. I want you to look at a couple things. One is how strongly they respond to what I said, how much they deny everything. You didn't think they'd do anything else, did you? And please, just for us, take a look at the poor quality of the video that you're paying for as opposed to what we've just given you for free. Go ahead, Mike.
Mr. Matthews is not my attorney. He's not the attorney for the county. He's not attorney at all. I think the jury is still out on that. So
it is not.
Okay. Anything else?
Yes.
I'm done.
Okay. As a matter of fact, I checked into it yesterday. There was an ethics commission panel convened on Friday, and they had a report from one of their inside investigators.
She holds up her fingers.
Who recommended that they go forward with a continued investigation and a potential contested case hearing. No one has been declared guilty of anything. No one has interviewed me. I don't know about the other two, but no one's interviewed me from the Ethics Commission, so the investigation is still underway. Obviously, with his lack of legal knowledge, Dale Matthews doesn't know how to differentiate between a continuing investigation, a potential contested case hearing, and a determination of innocence or guilt. So for his proclamations, I think he's up here posturing at this podium so that he can post something on his website to show what an involved citizen that he is, in fact, with false, misleading, and absolutely untrue information. The parties here who are involved, and I can't speak for the other two, but for myself, I am definitely involved in this. And as to subpoenaing information, we have provided every bit of information that has ever been asked for. Minutes of meetings, videotapes, everything they've asked for.
Videotapes,
so
really?
The investigation is continuing. There has been no determination of guilt on the part of anyone. The other situation.
Good point to reinforce that, if I might, Ms. Commissioner Walker, is that there isn't any, ramifications. If we were guilty, there would be something as far as sanctions are concerned, and that hasn't been determined, I think, by Mr. Matthews' own testimony. And so, without that, it's pretty evident that there is not a guilty verdict in this, or innocent. It's just a
if there was any violation, and it's not a guilty as far as a crime. If there were any violation, there are negotiated type things of whether it's sanction, whether it's a monetary or a letter, but we aren't even to that point. As I said, no one from the state has interviewed us. We've not had any opportunity for a hearing as yet. I understand that may be the next step. So anyway, his protestations about being any member of this board being pretending guilty of anything are absolutely false.
Take it in any order you like, Mike.
Yeah, well, they all waived their right to testify by having the attorney represent them in a form of a letter as opposed to showing up and testifying. Why would those commissioners from the OGC be asking if any of those people were there?
Right.
Oh, because that's the time you show up and testify. That's why. And the fact that they didn't, none of them did. We have a letter from their attorney. That's what they have.
And
You
the
know,
attorney decided not to. Why would even the attorney show up? Why bother? They've never found him guilty of anything in the past, and we've had worse things that we've turned him in for.
Right, and that really is the point of this, is that they don't even take that hearing seriously. They really don't. They you know, there has been a finding. That's clear.
Yes.
Otherwise,
what are they appealing? They can't appeal something that didn't happen.
That's right. No, they have been, listen, they didn't say guilty in this thing, although they did say it to other people who asked them about this.
Very carefully.
In that hearing there, they did all agree, they all voted on whether or not, the violation took place, and they all agreed that it did. That sounds like, to me, a done deal.
You think so?
Now, as far as I know, the only thing that is left in this is the phase where they determine what the penalty for this is.
That's right. That's what they're just saying. They just said that, well, we haven't reached the penalty phase. Yes, but you don't have a penalty if you're not guilty.
Right. Yes. If first comes the murder conviction, then comes the determination as to whether it's going to be death or life in prison.
That's right.
I'm not suggesting anything or anything, but
sounds like a good start to me.
No, come on. So anyway, we're all going to find out together. It's probably going to take a while because these things are bureaucratic and whatever.
Well, also, now, if you like their response, then don't click on any of these. But if you think their response is just a little bit disingenuous, I would suggest that you click on one of these. And I'm not going to tell you which one to click on. You should click on any one of them that you think is important to you.
Yes, he's not making any suggestions at all.
No. Come on now. Okay, so
I would not try to influence you in any way.
No, not at all. Okay. So look, of course there is going to be retaliation. This is why you should be careful. Don't go to their office, because we have found what happens to people who go to their office. They get yelled at, and then later on they say, well, I never did any of that. Right? So that's not going to be helpful. We will send emails on your behalf, but it won't have your name attached to it. So is there some kind of penalty phase for me right away for pointing this out, even though I am a candidate and even though I was the one that turned them in? Sandy and I did. Yes, there's retaliation. And here's the retaliation. Get your finger ready to do some clicking.
In that you know and declare that I have been found guilty of ethical violations, that you are now moving forward without the Board of County Commissioners, and you are now part of the past in which you have turned your back, I see no point in recognizing you for 3 minutes to address as you consider us historic relics of insignificance. So I will not be recognizing you. Anybody else on this side have any comments? Yes, Mark.
Okay, there you have it. Now, did he say because you are disrupting this meeting? No. Did he say because you are breaking our rules? Did he say because you're yelling out expletives?
He just didn't like your style, Dale.
My style was turning in lawbreakers.
Yes.
Didn't like that. Was when I stood up and said that, was I screaming? Was I yelling? Did I really raise my voice? So what's the problem? Turned them in.
They don't like you.
Yes.
That's what the problem is.
So others can speak, but not me. Look, you asked us to keep their feet to the fire. You asked us to keep them accountable. That's what we're doing. And we're using whatever tools the state will give us. And they only like this one tiny little thing. Okay. And we turn them in and boom, they're guilty. Yes, they are. They're guilty of lots of things. We're going to handle that. But this is your chance to say, hey, you know what? We got them for spitting on the sidewalk. Okay. That's against the rules. Right? So then nobody knew what would happen. Was this forever? Was it just for that one time? So when Keith was out, the next time that they met, Cheryl Walker was the chair. Let's see what happens with Cheryl Walker.
Anyone over here wish to speak?
My hand is up.
Mr. Matthews, last week, 2 weeks ago, made a statement that the board was no longer relevant and you were turning your back on us and you were going to go your own way. And so I suggest you keep going your own way. You will not be speaking today. Anyone else wish to speak?
That is petty and unfair.
Okay, we will bring it back to the board then.
Got anything to say there, Simon? No, I got nothing to say. What do you expect from these guys? Really?
Yeah, I think you know, on the topic of Dale Matthews, I think they're fairly united.
Yeah. Keep them accountable. It's what you want, right? Change your mind? Don't want accountability? I think you do. I think so. And so that's what we do. So I get out there and suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune and walk out of there every time bleeding. Okay. One time almost literally because Keith Heck attacked me. All right. I've told you about that. I put in a report to the police right away. Okay. He got a secretary to lie on his behalf, but it was just he said, she said kind of thing. Anyway. We didn't get that on videotape. We try to get everything that we can on videotape. We try to do that every time. Even when we do have it on videotape, you've got people like Wally Hicks will say you don't have it on videotape. Wally, what are you saying? Of course we have it on video. No, you don't. No, you don't. Hey, J.J. Schofield, you don't have that on videotape. The commissioners, you don't have it on videotape. Roy Lindsay from the city council, you don't have it on videotape. That was on videotape and in a courtroom with 2 cameras and a court recorder. No, you don't have that. No, that never was said. Well, so you get a chance to say what you think. That's what these are over here about, okay? Tomorrow, we've got a pretty interesting show for you. And the next day, we have one too. Tell them where we're going tomorrow afternoon, Mike, please.
That's the Ivy Airport. There's a brouhaha about the potential contract with Erickson Air Crane and them to do some sort of training out there, which is going to be loud and bothersome to some of the neighbors there. And so there's going to be a bunch of people there, and they're all going to talk about it.
When I called and talked with some of those people, I like them, but I said, and I don't like some of the people who are pushing for this in county government, but okay, try to set that aside. I said, listen to the commissioners explain this in the little back room, it sounds like it's just some people that live near the airport that want peace and quiet, but they do live near the airport. I mean, after all, they're going to expect some kind of noise, right? And the guy was very nice, and he says, yes, of course. He said, but the only explanation I can give you, and we'll get more information about this, is if you probably haven't been on the deck of an aircraft carrier, but everybody on the deck of an aircraft carrier has to wear noise canceling headphones because it's super noisy. And if you took them off, you get permanent hearing loss. I don't mean like rock concert noise. I mean like big time painful. Okay. So that's the kind of noise, according to the people who are opposed to this, that these big helicopters make, especially when they're training on picking up huge loads. You can imagine they're going to make more noise as a helicopter when they're picking up huge loads. Of course they are. Okay. So then the question is, do they want that flying over their homes? Everybody gets, candy colored headphones to wear at home? I don't think so. So there's a huge amount of money that's involved that could be coming into the county. There's reputations involved and that kind of thing. And it's going to be quite a showdown between people who have decided that they want this. That would be Larry Graves and Cheryl Walker. And the community there says, no, wait a minute. How are we going to even keep this smoke jumper museum open when these guys are out there and we can't even hear ourselves think? We're just going to have to close up when they're here. So we'll give people the chance to speak like we did tonight with the voting, like you have a chance to do. If this is the kind of government you want, then don't vote. And if it is not the kind of government you want, then register your opinions. We will pass them on to people. We'll follow up on what people are saying, and we'll try to replace the kind of people who would do, not that kind of thing, we don't know about that yet, but the kind of people who do what you saw now and laugh about it. Oh, if you don't like it, why don't you just file with the state? Well, we did. Uh-oh. Mike?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got nothing on that.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
Good night, everybody. Thanks for watching.